In a small village surrounded by green hills, there lived a woman named Fatou. Her restaurant was famous and everyone in the village loved to eat there. The food was so delicious that people often chose to dine at her place rather than in their homes. But what amazed everyone was that Fatou seemed to do it all alone. She cooked for the entire village without any help, also everyone thought. Fatou was a beautiful woman who had loved cooking since she was a little girl. As a child, she would spend hours pretending to cook, making imaginary meals for her family. As she grew older, her love for cooking only grew stronger. She dreamed of becoming the best chef in the world. One day, Fatou met a man who was traveling through her village. He saw how much she loved cooking and offered her a charm, a small pendant that he said would make her the best chef of her time. Without thinking much about it, Fatou accepted the charm. She was so eager to become a great chef that she didn't consider the consequences. But soon after, the man told her that there was a price to pay for the charm. In 10 years, he would return and Fatou would marry him. If she tried to marry anyone else, both she and the man she loved would die. Fatou was terrified, but then it was too late. She felt trapped with no way to escape. Fatou opened her restaurant, but to her surprise, 5 women appeared within the first week. They claimed they were sent by the man who gave her the charm and were there to help her cook. These women weren't ordinary. They were jinns, supernatural beings with strange features. Their feet faced backward and their long hair reached down to their legs. Although they scared her, Fatou had no choice but to accept their help. With the jinns' assistance and the charm's power, Fatou's food became incredibly delicious. Her restaurant quickly grew into popularity and soon, people from all over the village came to eat there. Fatou made a strict rule. No one was allowed in the kitchen. Everyone had to stay front while the food was prepared. As the years passed, Fatou became more and more afraid of the man's return. She couldn't bear the thought of marrying him, but she also knew the cause would kill anyone she tried to marry. Desperate to find a way out, Fatou decided to seek help from a marabout, a spiritual leader who was known for breaking curses. One evening, Fatou gathered her courage and visited the marabout, an old man who lived on the outskirts of the village. She told him everything, the charm, the curse, and the man who was coming to claim her. The marabout listened carefully, then nodded slowly. He agreed to help and began preparing for a ritual to remove the curse. Fatou was hopeful. She thought that with the marabout's help she might finally be free. But as the marabout started the rituals, something terrible happened. The sky grew dark and a cold wind swept through the room. Suddenly, the marabout gasped, clenching his chest. His eyes widened in fear as he stared at something only he could see. Fatou watched in horror as the marabout collapsed to the floor, lifeless. She tried to shake him awake, but it was too late. The jinn had struck, killing the marabout before he could break the curse. Fatou's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the terrible power of the curse and danger she was in. Terrified and hopeless, Fatou fled from the marabout's house. She now knew that the curse was far stronger than she had imagined. Anyone who tried to help her would be in grave danger. With a heavy heart, she returned to her restaurant feeling more trapped than ever. But deep inside, Fatou refused to give up. She couldn't let the curse control her life forever. She just needed to find someone who could help her. Someone brave enough to face the jinn and powerful enough to break the curse. And so, her search for freedom continued, even as the dark shadow of the curse loomed over her. In the days following the marabout's death, Fatou was haunted by the memories of his lifeless body. She knew the curse was real and that its power was terrifying. Each time she tried to seek help, the jinn would strike, leaving her more frightened and desperate. But even with fear gripping her heart, Fatou couldn't give up. She continued to run her restaurant, hiding her worry behind a false smile as she served her customers. The villagers noticed that Fatou seemed different. Her once bright and cheerful demeanor had dimmed, and she no longer laughed as she used to. Rumors began to spread, with some people whispering that Fatou was hiding a dark secret, but no one had dared to ask her directly, for fear of what they might discover. One day, a woman named Astu came to Fatou's restaurant. Astu was known in the village for her curiosity and bravery. She had heard the rumors and wanted to find out the truth herself. After ordering her food, Astu quietly observed Fatou, noticing the tension in her every move. When Fatou turned her back, Astu slipped through the crowd and made her way to the back of the restaurant, determined to uncover what was hidden there. As Astu entered the kitchen through the back door, she was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. The 5 women were moving with unnatural speed, their feet facing backward with their long hair trailing behind them. They walked silently with their eyes focused on their task. Astu's heart raced as she realized that these women were not human. One of the jinns noticed her and hissed in anger, causing Astu to freeze in place. The jinn grabbed a heavy kitchen utensil and raised it threateningly, ready to strike. Before the jinn could attack, Fatou burst into the kitchen, her face pale with fear. "Stop!" she screamed, rushing to Astu's side. The jinn hesitated, then lowered the utensil, but the anger in her eyes remained. Fatou turned to Astu, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be in the kitchen." Astu, still shaking, stammered an apology. "I am sorry. I just wanted to know what's going on here. Who are these women?" Fatou sighed deeply, knowing she couldn't hide the truth any longer. She gently led Astu out of the kitchen and sat her down in a quiet corner of the restaurant. "I need to tell you something, but you must promise not to speak it to anyone," Fatou said, her voice barely above a whisper. Astu nodded and her curiosity burning brighter than ever. Taking a deep breath, Fatou told Astu everything: the charm, the curse, the man who was a jinn, and how he had promised to return and claim her as his wife. She explained how the 5 women in the kitchen were jinns sent by the man to help her cook, and how the curse had killed the marabou who tried to help her. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. "I am trapped, Astu. No one can break this curse without risking their lives. I've given up hopes." Astu listened carefully, but her heart going out to Fatou. She couldn't believe what she was hearing, but the fear and pain in Fatou's eyes told her it was true. "Fatou, you can't give up," Astu said firmly. "There has to be a way to break the curse. I'll help you, no matter what it takes." Fatou shook her head. "You don't understand, Astu. The jinn is too powerful. Anyone who tries to help me ends up dead. I can't let you risk your life for me." But Astu was determined. She couldn't stand by and watch as Fatou suffered in silence. "I'm not afraid," Astu said, her voice resolute. "We'll find a way together." Astu went home that evening and told her grandmother everything. Her grandmother, a wise and knowledgeable woman, listened carefully. "This is a dangerous situation, Astu," she warned. "The jinn is powerful and you must be careful. But there might be someone who can help, an old friend of mine. She's blind, but she dealt with spirits before. She might know what to do." The next morning, Astu and Fatou visited the blind woman. As they approached her small hut, the air grew colder. and Fatou felt a shiver run down her spine. The woman welcomed them and listened as they explained the situation. She agreed to help, but as soon as she began her rituals, the air inside the hut became heavy. The jinn in Fatou's kitchen sensed what was happening and alerted their master. Suddenly, the blind woman stopped chanting. Her face twisted in pain. She clenched her chest and fell to the ground, her breath coming in rage gasps. Before Astu and Fatou could react, the woman was gone. The jinn had killed her, just as he had the marabou. Fatou's heart sank. Another life lost because of her. Tears streamed down Fatou's face as she and Astu left the hut. "I told you, it was hopeless," Fatou whispered, her voice filled with despair. "No one can break this curse." But Astu refused to give up. She continued to search for a solution, determined to find a way to free Fatou. One evening, Astu's grandmother called her over. "Astu," she said softly, "I've been thinking there might be a way to trap the jinn, but it's risky and it requires something that belongs to him." "The charm," Astu realized. "But if we take the charm, Fatou won't be able to cook, and if the jinn finds out..." Astu's grandmother nodded. "It's dangerous, but it's the only way. We need to switch Fatou's body with yours temporarily, so you can stay in the kitchen and keep the jinns busy while Fatou brings the charm to me. Once we have the charm, I'll perform the rituals to trap the jinn inside it." Fatou was hesitant, but she knew she had no other choice. She agreed to the plan, and the next day, she closed the restaurant, telling the villagers she needed a break. Astu's grandmother performed the ritual, and for a short time, Fatou and Astu switched bodies. While Astu stayed in the kitchen pretending to be Fatou, Fatou rushed to the grandmother's hut with the charm. As the grandmother began the ritual, the jinn appeared, furious at the attempt to trap him. He lunged at Fatou, his hands closing around her throat as he tried to strangle her. But the grandmother, with her last bit of strength, channeled her power into the charm, pulling the jinn into it with a final, desperate cry. The jinn was shocked into the charm, trapped forever. The moment the jinn was captured, Astu returned to her own body. The jinns in the kitchen, now powerless without their master, fled the village in terror. The curse was finally broken, and Fatou was free. News of the event spread quickly, and the villagers were amazed by the story. Fatou, no longer burdened by the curse, hired real human helpers for her restaurant and continued to cook with love and passion. She eventually married a man who truly loved and lived happily ever after. Fatou never forgot the kindness and bravery of Astu and her grandmother. She knew she owed her freedom to them and was forever grateful. Her restaurant continued to thrive, but now the delicious food was made with her own hands, not with the help of a curse. As for the charm, it was buried deep in the ground, far from the village, where no one could ever find it. Fatou's life returned to normal, and she finally found the peace and happiness she had longed for.